not a massively talked about component of how important like developing major instant skill set is having like a really good either kind of mentor or coaching figure, particularly when you land in a new organization that does have slightly different working practices. I think those people and having a good one of them just sets up everything for success, whereas there being kind of a lack of that. And this is part of we're doing a lot with, and we'll actually publish some of this soon, but we're doing a lot with companies around job tiers in major incident management. So, for example, like a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and the competencies and behaviours that need to be shown by that, because it does a couple of things. One, it means that you have progression within the role, because often people who are good major incident managers can be ambitious too. So the worst thing you want to do really is give them somewhere where they feel like there's no progression option or any way to develop. Having like multiple levels which increase, going, well, actually this is what's expected, is really useful for someone feeling like they get to continually develop. And they should as well. I don't mean you should just pay lip service to it. I mean that actually there should be competencies and a higher expectation of someone who is, for example, a level 3. And that does a lot in terms of keeping people who would be incredible coaches in that role, so that you don't potentially lose them to a different part of the business too soon. But I think pay scales is a really interesting one, because I mean we did the annual report, and it's really interesting. Banks, I think, are pretty good at understanding and quantifying downtime, so they can be, in our experience, very good at understanding the cost of losing someone, then having to hire again for that role. So they are a bit better at investing in people in terms of money and training. I think other areas are a bit slower to catch up. Managed service providers are getting good at this as well, actually. And they're doing more work around creating job tiers. They're doing more work around training. We're doing a few global transformation with a couple of the larger managed service providers. And their leadership really get it. But I think there is an issue, and I call it creating sustainable major incident functions, when I'm talking about actually your talent acquisition and retention strategy, and saying, well, these are the things that must go into it if you really care about these people and want to retain the skills and knowledge that actually is quite rare in our world. You need to kind of do the legwork to set it up for success. And so I think people like them that you've mentioned, making sure that you retain them and look after them instead of losing all of that talent and the tribal knowledge as well that you get from a company, I think it's just so important. And again, something that's often overlooked. It's always slightly blown my mind how to give people either nominal raises with inflation or whatever, companies go no, yet they'll then spend on recruiting somebody completely new to the function and potentially even then paying more as a salary. I've always found that absolutely mind-blowing, but it definitely still goes on in our world,
I think
which is an interesting one.
I think from my perspective, from the major incident function, is there's such a disparity between pay, and that's our problem. That really is. We've we people ask for major, job specs come up and they want a major incident manager and they're paying, say 45 to 55 or whatever. And then you get other companies that are paying 50 to 70. Um, there's such a disparity between pay between major incident managers that I don't know, that people are not really sure about that piece. You know what you were saying there. So I don't know. I don't know how
I think that goes
you solve that one, but I'm sure you've got some ideas.
well. We're gonna yeah, we have actually. We're gonna publish the tiers and the structure that we think there should be within, and we're gonna give some indicative pricing for salaries for all the different countries and regions. But we'll start with the ones that we work most in, because we know those best and have the data on it. And we'll give companies some guidance on kind of, if you want this level of experience and this level of seniority and skill, then this is roughly the range that you should be expecting to pay. And we'll keep publishing annual reports on salaries to say, look, this is how they're moving as a global trend. This is how they're not. I think that comes in, though. The companies that are paying like in our world, in the pound sterling, like 70 to 80 grand or more, I think they're typically the ones who get it, and they're looking for someone who's potentially like done ops director roles or just run major incidents at that level of seniority and could face off with like the CEO, for example, of a country if it was that much of a problem. And they expect blood, though. They know it's very hard work. You're going to work for that. Whereas there are some companies who are, paying much lower. It depends what region they're in, because it's all relative and cost of living is different in other places.
Mine was just
I
UK.
think it's
Mine was just obviously something UK.
No, it's really interesting though, because naturally, like in the whole of the IT world, because IT budgets are being squeezed by businesses, just because businesses need to continually create cost efficiencies. You saw offshoring to India was a massive trend for many years, and so part that continues. I think culturally there was some misalignment sometimes, so I think actually then it moved across to places like Europe. I mean, Poland, for example, you've got a relatively low cost of living, but you've got a really well educated group of people, so their standard education level is quite high. A really intelligent bunch of people who are eager to do really good work, and that's why you've seen lots of companies go into Poland in the technology space. I mean, I could just list all of them have gone there, and I think it's a really good move. But naturally, what starts to come with that over the years of maturity is the cost of that labour there goes up. And so then all the companies look for the next place where you're going to get that balance of really skilled people, but the cost isn't so high. And it's a bit of a dichotomy, because I mean, we're talking kind of global strategy here, so we're slightly off piste, but it's an interesting challenge, because they have no choice. If you're either in-house IT, or you're the CIO, or you're a managed service provider, if your clients or end users or the business is saying, sorry, this is now your budget, but we need more, you have very little option but to continually look for economies of scale and new areas where cost of labour is lower. And I'm sure that's the way it is with pretty much every industry. I think it's just hard in our industry because there is such complexity to what we do. You need these really smart people, and really smart people typically over a period expect to be paid as such. But I think what's interesting is I often hear people who are perhaps working at much lower ends of the scale in terms of salary, and they'll do some work with us and training with us. And it's going back to what I was saying, they believe that they're kind of here and what they're delivering is here. But if you were to look at them on a maturity assessment, kind of, they don't really have any understanding of leadership. They've never had exposure to it. It doesn't mean they're not naturally talented in some way. You get some people who've got incredible innate leadership skills, and they're doing what you and I perhaps would consider very basic major incident management, and they've never really had to deal with some of the pressures that you were talking about. And they see a job going for £70,000 or £80,000, and they're slightly disgruntled. They think that's what they're doing, and so they don't understand why they're not earning that. And so, with respect, I try and kind of educate them and go, no, it's completely different from what you're doing. The level of pressure, and also the severity of mistakes that can be made, potentially can be career-ending. When you're earning like an executive, particularly in the UK, you take the responsibility that comes along with that. And so it's a really different thing, which I think has confused everyone. As you say, there's someone who's maybe earning like, I don't know, 30,000 or whatever, and they're looking at this 70 or 80,000 pound job, and they're like, yeah, but I do this. Why aren't I earning that? And it's But hopefully, again, the community will spend more time engaging with one another so that people get that. But hopefully, the tiers that we're talking about and what we'll publish will help both people's understanding of that, but also help give employers a bit more of a guideline.